Hi everybody, Russ and My Hammers 11. Hope you're all safe and well. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, hitting the bell icon so you're made aware of any time there's put new content on. As always, we'd like to thank our channel sponsors, Untuck It. Check them out in the description below. Today's guest is our first professional golfer we've had, and also is our first ever Ryder Cup captain as well. Funny that. So you know Paul McGinley, professional golfer, Ryder captain. He obviously the 2002, the old 10-footer against Furyk on the 18th and Belfry, still something which I still remember very, very vividly, and lots of other accolades. And obviously there's a tournament wins, but more importantly, why he's on the show is he's a West Ham fan, and that's all that pales in comparison to being a Hammer. How are we, Paul? How are you, man?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, happy Hammer at the moment, that's for sure.
Yeah, we are happy Hammers at the moment, so we might as well enjoy it while we can. How have you been in these sort of weird times we live in at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's make the most of a bad situation. I live in London, so full lockdown at the moment, and yeah, bit of exercise every day. Whoa.
Oh, and the iPad's gone, so there we go.
There we go. All right, we're good now. Yeah, full lockdown at the moment, bit of exercise every day. I've got a bit of work to do. Do a lot of research, getting ready for the season, keep a bit of training going, and yeah, just kind of making the most of a very bad situation like everybody.
Yeah, it is, and obviously we've had lots of ex-professional footballers on the channel, and obviously they all play golf, and now they can't play golf at the moment, can they? So I don't know what they're going to be doing at the moment, particularly the London-based ex-players at the moment. I didn't realise how much they all played golf, Paul, but they all play golf, so it's incredible how much golf these guys play.
I know it is. Yeah, well, it's great. Age is no barrier when it comes to golf. So with the handicap system as well, too, you can kind of play with players who are better than you, or players that are worse than you, and still have a good bet, have a bit of game. And I think they're also great competitors. Professional sports people are competitive by nature, and I think golf gives them an outlet to continue that competitiveness. And yeah, certainly. I come across a lot of ex-football. I'm a huge football fan. I always have been, and it's always fun when you're drawn with or play with an ex-player, because my years growing up, 1980s in particular, 1990s, that was when 1980s was when actually 70s was when I started watching football, but the 80s was when I really got into it.
Really got into it, yeah. And obviously, because there's nothing to watch on telly, everyone's been watching loads of old highlights of sports and stuff like that. And obviously all the Ryder Cup stuff has been on on telly and YouTube and stuff. And I mean, looking through the Ryder Cup, we won't talk about. It's not a golf channel or a football channel, but I can't take the opportunity not to talk to you about the Ryder Cup.
I prefer to talk about football.
Oh, okay, no problem right there. But
no, yeah, I mean, it's fine.
I mean, obviously, Ryder Cup 2014 being sort of the first ever Irishman to captain the European team. Obviously, they won. Fantastic. Aspirations to do it again. Aspirations to be captain again, Paul, sometime down the line.
No, I think that ship has sailed at this stage now. No, it's a one-time only basis now. I mean, it only happens every 2 years.
Yeah.
It's a huge honor to be captain, and the reason why it's such a huge honor in Europe is that your peers, the players, vote who the captain is.
Sure.
So it's not a committee, or it's not a group of people or a board. It's actually the players themselves. The players who are going to be playing have a big input on who it's going to be. So, and of course, to them, basically because it's every 2 years and there's so many players, there's 12 players in a Ryder Cup team, they all want to be captain. So if somebody did it 2 or 3 times, a lot of them would miss out. So that'd be unfair to do. So now one time only, and like a heavyweight boxer or a retirement of fated, one win from win. One win from one.
I'm done. Yeah, exactly. 100% winning record. That's what I like. Yeah. No, it's very good. As we said, you're a West Ham fan, which is obviously why we have you on here, Paul. And the first question I usually ask people is why West Ham? So obviously, why West Ham? Why is it your club, Paul? Why are you a West Ham fan?
So I live in London now. I've lived here for over 20 years, but I grew up in Dublin, right in the middle of Dublin. And 1975, Cup final against Fulham. I was 8 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, yeah. And I was just starting to get into football. And a fella down the road, we lived in a semi-detached estate in the suburbs of Dublin. And Mr. Skelton, who lived 4 doors down from us, was the only guy on the road with a colour TV. So when the cup final was on in May, being a Saturday, we were all invited in on the road to come and watch the cup final in colour. And so kids in front, obviously, I still remember sitting in this front room watching the cup final. And at that stage, I was only getting into football, and it was two teams. It was a claret and blue team or a black and white team. And because it was colour, the claret and blue stood out as being something.
Good point.
They look fun. And so I cheered for West Ham because of the colour of the strip. And, we obviously win. And West Ham from that day on. And what we have in Ireland, we've Gaelic football in Ireland, which is our biggest sport. And you'd have 80,000 people going to these games. It's a huge sport in Ireland. It's a cross between rugby and soccer. And what you have in Gaelic football is, unlike soccer, it's an amateur game, but there's no transfers. So you can only play for the county you're born in, the 32 counties. You can only play for the county you're born in. So it becomes incredibly parochial, and you become very passionate about your team because that's, your county. That's where you were brought up, where you went to school, and that's your team for life. And that's kind of West Ham with me. I had that connection with West Ham from that first game of football. I remember watching on colour TV, and I was just as passionate about West Ham as I was about anything else. I mean, I grew up also as a Celtic fan. My mum and dad are from Donegal in the top corner of Ireland, and there's a big affinity between Donegal and Celtic. My mum used to go to the Old Firm games when she was younger with her dad over on the boat and the ferry. So there's Celtic as part of my roots as well. But Rangers West Ham, is I have that affinity with West Ham like I would do with Celtic, or would do with Dublin and Donegal, which are my roots as well.
Yeah, that's a brilliant story, isn't it? I mean, we've had lots and it's funny how the FA Cup finals and things like that. That's what gets youngsters into supporting West Ham. It happens quite. If it's not 75, it was 80, or if they're very young, it was 2006. So it'd be nice to get to another FA Cup final soon. I think just to get a few more fans in as well. But no, it's fantastic. And as you said, but I mean, West Ham and Celtic, there's a lot of connection there. There's a lot of players who have played for both, isn't it? Obviously, Maka and Hartson and Di Canio and Carlton Cole and Berkovic and Liam Brady, and there's loads of them, isn't it? So there's always this sort of. I remember going up there to Parkhead for the. We had a friendly many years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It was absolutely amazing atmosphere. It was fantastic. But and once you're in, aren't you? Once you've picked your colours, unless you're one of these, fair weather fans, once you picked your colours, you're in, aren't you, Paul? And as you said, that claret and blue just popped on that TV screen. Yeah, brilliant story. Love that. That's fantastic, man. That's really, really good.
Well, that was the case. I mean, growing up, that was the case for me growing up in Dublin. Then I was probably the only West Ham fan in Dublin at the time. Everybody was Leeds or Man United or Chelsea or Liverpool, and I was West Ham. And my dad used to go over to London once a year on business, and he always brought me back the jersey. So when I did my Gaelic training and did my soccer and all of that thing, I was always the guy in the West Ham jersey, and brilliant. I kind of stood out for that reason. And that was me. And the more everybody was Liverpool and Chelsea and Man United, the more. Oh, sorry, the screen of mine is moving again.
The
more I was into West Ham.
Yeah, totally.
And very passionate.
It's like that siege mentality, isn't it? Because you're the only one, so you want to be even more bigger as a West Ham fan because you're the only one. You feel like you have to make a bigger influence on people, particularly as you said, Leeds and Man United and Liverpool and stuff. But and obviously, living in London and stuff, getting to the games and stuff like that. And I remember you being on the pitch at Upton Park. Just after 2002, wasn't it? After the Ryder Cup, I'm pretty sure that Jeremy got you on the pitch. I remember that very well. I was there. I remember that particularly well. And as you said, West Ham, it's just Upton Park, London Stadium, the fanatic fans, special bunch of fans. I think we are, aren't we? Really, I like to think that we are very special fans, really. Would
Oh,
you
I couldn't
agree?
agree more. I mean, that's the connection for me, the old East End. I remember the first time going there. I was working in Brussels at the time. This is before I was a professional golfer. I left college
Mm,
in Dublin. I was a late developer as a golfer, and I was working 6 months in Brussels. And I went to visit my auntie who lived in Fulham, and I went with her. I picked a weekend to go and visit her from Brussels. Um, I went to pick a weekend that West Ham would be playing at home. I'd never seen West Ham play before. So I'm now, what am I? I'm 17, 18, 19, 20. I'm about 21. And going to Upton Park for the first time, getting on the district line at Fulham and going across the city, which I'd never been to London before. Going across the city, it took forever, right enough. But I didn't bother. I was so excited going to the game, and even now I can feel the goosebumps coming on my arm, and as I think of that train journey, and as I got closer and closer to West Ham and Upton Park, and then getting out and walking up Green Street and seeing the stadium for the first time, and going into the terrace. I mean, it was a hugely emotional for me. Even now, it's amazing. I'm still really into those emotions. It's quite
yeah.
incredible, and that was me, and it was the authenticity of the club more than anything. The
Mm,
authenticity of EastEnders, London. I was a punk rocker as a boy as well too. Not a lot of people know that, but punk rock was my thing. That was my music as a teenager, and even now, even on my iPad, when I'm in the gym, a lot of punk rock is still on there. And of course, London was the epicenter of punk rock.
yeah.
And Sham 69, all of those kind of singing about.
Yeah.
What am
Yeah.
I doing with the screen? Sorry.
It's all
Um,
right.
the Clash, all of these bands,
Yeah.
singing with the London accent, and my connection with West Ham, and so kind of they molded together. And as I say, walking up and into the stadium for the first time, huge excitement, and I ended up being a season ticket holder there when I did move to London, for a large number of years until I moved out of up the park, and even though I was on tour and only got a chance to go, not as much as I'd like. I had lots of friends who also became West Ham fans, and gave them the tickets when I wasn't there, and they were really
Yeah.
good tickets. And yeah, so that was it. That was me, West Ham, and still am to this day. I
Yeah.
never miss a game when it's on TV, and obviously look for the result all the time and follow things closely. And delighted that
Yeah.
Moyes is doing well too. He's a guy that I've met playing golf over the years, and
Mm,
he's a guy I liked a lot. And then when he got the West Ham job, I was pulling for him, and then he left, and I was sad for him. And now he's come back again and doing really well. I'm really
yeah.
happy for him. He's a smash guy,
Yeah.
and delighted
He
that
is.
it's working out at the moment.
Yeah, no, he is. He's and what I like about him is what I like about this second stint particularly is there feels like it's going a bit back to the old school. Do you know what I mean? In terms of he's got proper football people in the backroom staff with like Stuart Pearce and Kevin Nolan, and there seems to be a bit like the old mentality where it doesn't matter who was putting the shirt on. You knew they'd put in 100%. And with people like Souček and Sue Fowl and Bowie and these signings, it's an exciting time to be a West Ham fan again at the moment. It's although we still look behind with like one shoulder, don't we? It's like we're 10th. We've got 26 points, fantastic. And then within the same breath, someone will say to me, 14 points to go. 14 points to go, just to get those 40 points to stay up. It's such a West Ham thing. But you're right. It's a sensory thing being a West Ham fan. As you said, you can watch all the games on telly. You probably get a better view now than you do if you're at the London Stadium. But it's a sensory thing. It's the smells. It's the togetherness. It's that you said walking up to the ground. It's that long train journey, bless you, from Fulham to Upton Park. And it's everything. I think that's what people miss. The sooner we get back, the better, I think, in terms of the fans, obviously, when it's all safe and stuff. But yeah, it's just typical. They're doing really well and there's no one to watch them. No one to cheer them on, falls. Yeah, in the game itself. But it is what it is, Paul, isn't it? We can't do much about it. But
No,
anyway.
there's not. I mean, one of the things, there's two things really. I know Trip Smith, who's an investor there too. I played golf with
Yeah.
Trip, and he's invited me there a few times. And luckily, I'll be able to sit in the chairman's suite, which is amazing. Anybody's had that honor. It's an amazing facility that they've got there. And one of the things I talked to Trip about, and as a West Ham fan and being a fan for so many years, I'm not expecting West Ham to win the league. That's pie in the sky at this moment in time. Yes, Leicester, you could say Leicester have won, but that was unique. It was different. The way the money is and the way things are and the size of West Ham and all that, it's highly, highly, highly unlikely. As a West Ham fan, you're not pulling for them to win the league. Obviously, you don't want to get relegated, as you quite rightly say. But the two things that I look for in a West Ham, as a West Ham fan personally, and this is just my view, is that I want to have a run in the cup. We can legitimately win a cup. Our history is based on winning cups, and when it comes to either the old League Cup or the FA Cup, I want us to put out our best team, and I want us to have a real go at winning that cup. And I don't want to go out to Oxford like we did and get beaten by Oxford. We got to be on the front foot, and we got to be beating these teams and treating this like this is our Premiership. I know it's important to say the Premiership, but I really want to see us at least have 100% go at winning a cup. That's the first thing I want as a West Ham fan. The 2006 final you mentioned earlier there, I was at that game, and I mean, I can't tell you how gutted I was walking out of that stadium. And even Stephen Gerrard, who I've met a few times now, and even now he's on the other side of the fence up at Celtic with Rangers. I mean, I see him every time I see him, my heart drops. Even though he's a really nice guy and I like him, it's like what he did to me that day in the last minute. It was so unfair and so wrong. We were a better team that day, and we were almost there. But so the first thing is winning a cup, and the second thing I say to Trip is that, and as a West Ham fan, what I love about the club, besides from the authenticity of the fans and the East End and the heartbeat of London, what I really, really am connected with West Ham and love to see every time I go to the games is I want to see elevation of academy players into the first team. Yeah. And I know the game has changed over the last 20 years or so, but I still want to see those guys coming through. I remember Glenn Johnson on his debut. I remember, Rio on Frank Lampard, Joe Cole. I remember, I was at a lot of those games when they were making their debut and brought on as a substitute. And the buzz around the stadium, because we all knew who these people were. They were one of us. They were one of us who came through the academy. We watched them in all the tables in the program about how they'd been doing and talking about them, highlighting this guy is going to be in the first team squad soon, and watching their elevation, watch how all those academy teams do. And Tony Carr was doing that so brilliantly. And, one after the other, they come through. But the buzz that went out in the stadium when one of those guys came on, particularly as a substitute and introduced, it was like he was a £50 million silent. Yeah. And it was only because he was true and he was West Ham. And that's what I want to see. And, I think we've lost our way. I know it's more difficult in the modern times, but the academy is not producing the same kind of players it used to. I went through a stat not long ago. Let me see if I remember. It was something like, what was it? It was something like of the top, I could be corrected on this, but the guys who made the most appearances for West Ham ever in the history of the club, I think it was 10 of the top 12 came from the academy.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And that's what I want. That's what West Ham's about. I want to see these guys bred in. I know the game has changed and it can't be as romantic as it might have been way back in the 60s, 70s, 80s with guys being one club and one club only. But I still want to see the elevation of these guys coming through and like the Mark Nobles and that's what the real connection for the fans is with the club. I know we've lost something when we've moved away from Upton Park, but we've also lost something because the academy is not quite as producing the same level and number of players than it used to as well. And I think that's a big miss. And I'd love to see loads of money invested into that academy. And producing real authentic West Ham players.
Yeah, and I think Moyes is the right man for the job for that. You know what I mean? It's where the more sort of European or the more foreign-based coaches, it's all about bringing their players in, whereas Moyes, he's come out and said he wants to build another Everton. Basically, that's what he wants to do. And to be honest, I'd let him do it because, as you said, it's building this. We've had Tony Carr on. We've had loads of like the youth team guys on, like Kevin Keane. You've had Zavon. We've had Mark Phillips. We've had Conch. They're all like in the setup now of the youth teams, and it is about having that sort of progression, whatever it is, conveyor belt of young boys coming in into the. As you said, there's nothing better than to see someone like Declan Rice, establish himself as an England international, as a captain, and he's obviously we got when he was 14, but still, it still counts. And and people like Ben Johnson and stuff like that. There's I think, you know, there's guys there, but you're right. It's not that sort of that golden era of Joe Cole and Rio and Frank, and that was a special time for the academy. And Tony knows that for sure, because we did. I mean, Tony did his 11, and his 11 was the academy 11, and pretty much it was the England 2010 World Cup team, because he included John Terry as well, because he coached him through the academy and stuff. But yeah, hopefully a cup run this year. Stockport away. The Ian Dowie derby, who knows, man? Who knows? But yeah, I think everyone wants to see a good cup run for once. It'll be good. We're well overdue one. We're well overdue one. 2006, you know, what was it, 16 years, 15 years since the last one? I think we're due one this year. But there'll be no fans typically probably there, which is the typical West Ham thing, isn't it? Now, moving on to
your matter, even if there's not.
I think people won't care, will they? It's you know, it's one of those things where it's you know, the world we live in at the moment. It's, you know, unfortunately, I think actually fans not being at the stadiums, it's become a bit like the norm now, isn't it? Really, people are used to it. 16 or 17 home games we've had there now, and yeah, it's a typical West Ham thing. They're performing well, and when fans did go back in, we lost 3-1 to Man United. So there you go. It's the West Ham way, Paul. You've been a fan long enough to know that's the case, isn't it? But yeah, no, it's good old West Ham. Right, let's talk about your 11, Paul. So everyone we've had on the channel, apart from 3 people, Harry Redknapp, Ian Bishop, and Nigel Reo-Coker, everyone else has given an 11. So the idea is you can pick whoever you want, doesn't really matter, but the only rule is you have to be alive to have seen them play. So obviously, you know, from you sort of the mid-70s onwards, basically. So that's not a bad bunch of players really to pick from. Maybe too many, to be honest. But you can pick whatever formation, doesn't matter, Paul. It's all about players that mean something to you. So if we started between the sticks, in goal, who's in goal for the McGinley 11? That's what everyone wants to know.
I'm a little bit romantic here, going back to my childhood. So I'll be picking one of the older ones, in Mervyn Day or Phil Parkes. So I'm going to go Phil Parkes.
Yeah,
he would be my choice as goalkeeper.
Yeah, fantastic, man, fantastic. You must have met Phil. Must have met Phil before.
Yeah, I've met him at West Ham, and you know, great hair. I wish I could have hair like him at the age he's at.
Bless
you
him.
know,
Yeah,
but he was great. I mean, those days, you know, I remember those days very clearly, the 80s in particular. So a lot of the players I'm going to pick are nostalgic reasons and 80s reasons, and in particular. And you know, back then, you know, you'd match of the day and a Saturday night, and that was it. There was no Sky, obviously, and very few live matches, if any. And what we used to do was listen to Radio 5, and, you know, in Dublin, we didn't get a very good reception in Dublin. So BBC Two it was at the time, BBC Radio 2. And I remember tuning that and sitting in the kitchen listening to the West Ham games, particularly the semi-finals, cup semi-finals. And,
yeah. Fantastic.
So yeah, a little bit nostalgic with some of my picks here that are coming forward.
No. It's people that mean something to you, and that was a very special time in your West Ham career, Paul. So yeah, we'll put Parkes in. Obviously, he turned 70 over the first lockdown. God bless him. Right, okay, let's go into defence, Paul. Are you gonna play 4 at the back, or are you gonna do anything clever 4 at the back? You know, or are we gonna do, I don't know, go for the 3 at the back, Moisey, or what are we gonna do?
Well, seeing as we're thinking that mostly in the 80s, we got to pick players that would fit a 4-2-4 formation, or a 4-4-2 formation rather. So obviously Billy Bonds is the first defender that comes to mind. You know, I was fortunate to meet Billy last year, first time I'd ever met him, and
wow,
I just love everything about Billy Bonds. You know, epitome way at a time in terms of fitness and everything that he did, led with his heart on his sleeve. You know, great captain, 20 odd years at the club. I think he might be the most appearances for West Ham. You'd know that better than me. Yeah. And yeah, just a good man, you know, quiet, goes about his business. And I met him last year, got a great picture of him with Trevor Brooking at West Ham when I was there last year. And great that they've named the stand after him as well too. He really is something special. So he'd be the first man that I would put down as a defender, and I put Alvin Martin beside him then. Yeah, I know he's a Scouser, but he's again a fulcrum of everything that we did at West Ham. Stood up for so much. You got Rio in there as well too. It's hard to leave out Rio, particularly with the career that he went on to have. So I'm probably going outside my reaches there. But then I'll say, the backs, the full backs. I mean, Ray Stewart at right back. I remember anytime there was a penalty, it was a given when he was taking it. There wasn't anybody better in the game taking penalties than Ray Stewart. So I'll go with him, and I'm going to go Frank Lampard as well at left back.
Nice.
I think he's closely connected with the club. Right through his, it's a shame that the connection is not quite the same now as it was because, obviously time has moved on. But he put so much into the club and stood for so much in the club. Again, like Billy Bonds, incredibly fit, always was fit. Him at left back would certainly be, again, I think about Billy, he's up there with Billy in terms of appearances, isn't he? But West Ham, most ever appearances. So it's hard to leave somebody like that out who's true West Ham, and then to produce an offspring like he did with Frank Jr. as well. He did a lot for West Ham.
He did, and I totally agree. I think it's a shame that Frank Lampard Senior isn't revered in the same light as you said a Billy Bonds or a Trevor Brooking or or Bobby Moore, because he played 600 games, something like that, for West Ham, and he gave so much. But as you said, that's one of my things. I want to try and get some recognition again for Frank Senior, because I think he bloody deserves it. The amount of games he played for West Ham, and so I totally agree with what you say there, Paul. Right, let's move into midfield then. Who are we going to have in midfield then? Lots of choices for you.
Well, I mean, the first name obviously has got to be Trevor Brooking. I've got to know Trevor very well in the last 20 years since I moved to London, and he's become a really good friend of mine, and I've really enjoyed him and Hilke's company. Anytime I'm there, we always hook up and see them. He's just everything you want about a person, as well as being a West Ham guy through and through. So passionate about the club now. One of the things that nearly moved me to tears as well was that when he was manager for that short spell of time, and we nearly did the unthinkable and get out of the relegation. He was so passionate. Do you ever see Trevor so passionate on a line like he was playing for England or playing for West Ham? He was never showing that kind of emotion. They did so much, and I think if my memory's right, the first team, the highest number of points the team ever got relegated with. And that was good mention for him and for the club at the time. And so Trevor is everything about West Ham, and as a person, anybody who's been lucky enough to meet him, he's everything that you'd want in a human being. He really is somebody special, and he's obviously my number one by a long, long way, up there with Billy Bonds. Those two will be the first two on the team sheet. I've got opinion with my connection with Celtic. I've got to be putting in Di Canio in particular. If you've ever got the chance to be Harry, I know you've been around Harry and you've interviewed him, but when Harry starts telling Paolo stories in the dressing room, and he can do his voice and he can do his accent, and he embellishes the story obviously the way only Harry can do. I mean, he'll have you in stitches and in tears. And again, I've been lucky to play a lot of golf with Harry over the years, and there's always new stories, and he's got the connection as well, right back to the Bobby Moores and the Jeff Hurst and all of those who he would have played with. So, if you ever want a history on West Ham, and it's so passionate, like I said earlier at the GAA with me in Ireland, and the passion of West Ham, Harry has that with West Ham. I know he's moved on and different things have gone in different ways, but he's West Ham, and his heart and soul is in the East End. Going back to all of those times that I was reading about in the 70s and 80s and 60s, and the players coming through and a training ground and all the stuff that was going on, Harry lived that life, and he's able to bring to life those stories that I was reading about. So him talking about Paolo, was it the game against Wimbledon when he scored that amazing goal? I think it wasn't I was at that game. And he scored it from the left side of the box, and I was right behind him, so I got an unbelievable view right down of where he had the shot from, and it was just incredible. It was almost like it happened in slow motion. Anybody who was there, it was quite incredible. And then when he would score, the celebrations that he had were just so real and so funny and so passionate. And of course, the more emotional he got, the more emotional the fans got, and the whole stadium went to another level when Paolo scored, because it meant so much. I mean, by all accounts, so Harry will tell you there's not many guys trained better than him or worked harder than he did.
Yeah.
You know, we all think about the eccentricities that he had, but I believe he was a very, very tough trainer and a hard worker and very, very passionate about West Ham. So, you know, I'd put him in there. And again, it's going to be nostalgia as well. I'll put in Alan Devonshire as well, too. You know, Alan Devonshire was that guy with that turn of speed and that dribbling ability that could score a goal or create a goal for West Ham back in the 80s. He was a really important part of that success that they had and came through in the 70s as well. So, you know, I'll have him in there. And then Joe Cole. Joe Cole is one of the best players I've ever seen play. I really do. I remember, again, Joe coming on for his debut at West Ham, and the skill level that he had was just phenomenal. And, you know, I followed his career closely. I was always a fan of whatever team he was playing for if they weren't playing against West Ham. You know, I think he's great pundit now too. I love listening to him on TV, but he was something really, really special. And, you know, in terms of a skill level, he was right up there. So how many is that? How many have I gone in there?
That's
you know,
four. That's actually got 4 midfielders.
You're not giving me enough. 11's kind of. Well, you know, Mark Noble and Scott Parker haven't gone in there. They're two guys I'd like to fit in there somehow too. But as I say, I'm a little bit nostalgic with all the 80s picks.
Yeah, well, that makes perfect sense. I mean, it's the people that come front to mind, isn't it, Paul, with these things? And we can put Mark and Scott on the bench. They're okay. Don't worry. I'll give a couple of bench players for you as well. But I mean, as you said, someone like, you know, could you imagine Joe and Dev on the same team? God. On the sort of the bowling greens of London Stadium rather than the mud fields of Stamford Bridge when they beat Chelsea 4-0 and stuff. But phenomenal players.
That's it. That's a really good point about the pitches. Actually, you know, them being so skillful players, how they would have been on really good football pitches that we have nowadays.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's like when we interviewed like Macca and stuff, and we talk about football nowadays, and he's like, yeah, but you go and watch us beat Chelsea 4-0 on a sandpit of Stamford Bridge. And so I did, and went back. I was like, oh my God, like seriously, you know, nowadays it's like, you know, the grass is like almost cut with scissors to a precise level, and it's incredible what they were doing. Like people like Trevor and Dev and people like that at that time was absolutely phenomenal. And I think for the younger fans, or less experienced fans, I don't call them younger fans, less experienced fans, I don't think they truly appreciate how the playing conditions and the balls and the boots and stuff like that, even in sort of the 80s, how they were so different from nowadays, where everything's like feather light, it seems. But no, top guys. And we've had people like Dev on before, and I could listen to Dev talk about football all day. Incredible man, lovely guy. Right, okay, who's going to be up front? Who's going to get these goals for the McGinley 11? That's the question, Paul. That's the question. Who's going to get your goals, man?
Well, another guy that I've got to know well over the years, and he's become a good friend and has come to a lot of events. He's got a young nephew actually who's a really good golfer. Is Pop Robson, and Pop was a goal scorer, and he could score goals, and Pop's become a good friend, and I've got to know him a lot, and he's just a smashing guy, and I'd be very happy to have him in the team. I think he would, with all the creativity we'd have in midfield, I think there'd be lots of opportunities, and there wasn't many at finding the net than Pop Robson. He was a true goal scorer. You know, I mean, guys like, you know, there's so many you think about up front, you know, guys like David Cross, for example, up front from the 80s, you want to put him in. To Antonio from the modern day. I mean, you know, muscular and powerful and so important to the team dynamic that we have at the moment. It's easy to, you know, it's not easy to pick two up front, but I'm going to go for two little guys, and one of them is Pop. The other one I would pick will be Cuddy, Tony Cuddy. Again, another born goal scorer, and through West Ham, and he would be a guy that I would really fancy putting away a lot of the chances that will be scored from that midfield. Yeah, so I'm going to go with the two little guys up front.
Nice. And actually, they complement. And you know, we've had TC on. Pop Robson was one of his big idols. We've had David Cross on. Pop was one of his big idols as well. So I think people don't realise the significance that Pop Robson played, not only as a player, but obviously the significance on other players who have been legends at West Ham as well. You know, and it's again, he's another one which I don't think he doesn't get enough accolades for in terms of what he did for West Ham. Pop did particularly. But yeah, him and Cotty, gosh. there'll be some goals there. There'll be some goals there, wouldn't there? But it's fantastic.
Yeah, there were 2 goal scorers. That's what they did. They scored
Yeah.
goals. I mean, you wouldn't say, all due respect, either of them would have been incredibly dynamic, like the way the Canada would be. But what they could do was convert half a chance, and that's what's missing a lot in the modern game, I think, of a lot of players. You know, a Gary Lineker style, you know, again, who wouldn't have been the most dynamic player by his own admittance, but could sniff out a goal, could sniff out a half chance, and had the balls when he went 1-on-1 to finish more times than not. You know, they're the kind of guys that they would fetch, you know, 50, 75, 100 million nowadays.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, look at someone like Dev, for example. I mean, Dev, we bought him for $5,000 from Southall, you know, so and now what would he be worth in today's money and stuff? But no, it's brilliant. No, and as you said that, but then I think that sort of modern day, that sort of Cotty-esque and type goal scorer, you don't get a lot of them at all in the Premier League at all now. It's they're all forwards. Even like Vardy is more of a forward, you know, Danny Ings is more of a forward now. You don't get those true strikers anymore. Sort of probably the last one was probably something like Jermaine Defoe, probably. But he's obviously still doing stuff with the old enemy up top as well, with Stevie G as well. So God bless. Paul, man, it's been absolutely fantastic. It's been lovely chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you're a busy man, so thank you. I really, really appreciate your time. It's been lovely reminiscing and chatting with you about West Ham.
Pleasure.
Thank you, and obviously thanks everyone for watching as well, or on podcast, on podcast or whatever, Spotify, Google, Apple, whatever it is. Give it a like, give it a share, and from myself and from Paul, take care, everyone. Stay safe, wash those hands, come on your irons, and we'll see you again very, very soon. Take care, everyone. Much love. See you later. Bye bye.